So we're putting these furring strips up here, and I'm going to use some drywall screws, and figured out what the right size drill bit is to go through this aluminum so that the drywall screw will fit in there real tightly. So let me just put a hole here. And put the drywall screw in. Okay, so that's got that good and tight. I'll do that all the way up and down, and we'll have a good place to put nails in for our ceiling. Okay, so we've got our furring strips all put in, and that went in pretty well. What we just realized though is when we put our insulation in, these screws are going to be in the way a little bit, but what I'll do is we'll just back out a couple of screws and fit the insulation in between those channels, and then just run the screw back in, and that'll help keep the insulation from rattling around in there. So that's what we'll do next. So here we've got the insulation cut and fit up into in between the channels. I mean, I really didn't have to unscrew any of those screws. We had to cut these are on 16-inch centers, and we had to cut them 15 1/4 in order to just get them to slide up in there. So they were within where the screws were. So, but we got a good snug fit on those. So now we should be ready to start measuring and cutting the 1/4-inch plywood. So we got the easy panel in. It's pretty easy to put up there. We slid it in on each end and then slid it over to the back, and then just used 1/2-inch staples with this pneumatic stapler. Put staples all along there, and then all along the middle where I had the other furring strip, 16 inches over. So we got that one in. So the next piece we're going to fit in here is going to be a really odd shaped piece. It's going to be a rectangle, but it's going to have this little tab that goes in like that, and it's also going to have a hole for the vent. So we cut a piece to fit without cutting out the vent hole yet, and got it up in there to make sure that it fits, and it does. So now we're going to cut the hole out for the vent, and while we had it up there, I kind of hammered on it a little bit, tapped on it so that these things right here would make a mark in the wood, so we'd know where to line it up. And I'm going to use the cover that goes over it for a template to draw off where we need to cut. So here's the piece that we've cut out, and here's the cover that goes over the vent on the inside. And so when we had it up there, I used a piece of wood and tapped on it to make a mark. I don't know if you can see that mark. Yeah, there's a mark there, and there's a mark right there where those two little bolts stuck down. And so then I'm going to line those up with this, and we'll know exactly where this goes. But I'll draw around it, and then I'm going to have to draw around inside that line, probably 3/8 of an inch, to get the perfect size hole. So this is the cover, and I've lined it up with the little indentions here that we made. I drew a line around it. Now I'm drawing a line on the inside of that, just freehand, because it needs to be inside of this. Well, amazingly enough, we got this thing cut, and it went in and fit really well. And so here's the vent cover. We'll go up there and fit just right. I'll put that in. So What we have left to do is caulk around these edges and paint everything and put this other little strip back that was right here. And then I'm gonna make a just a little strip of wood, thin strip of wood to cover this seam right here. And we'll be done. So the next step on this ceiling is to caulk around the edges. I've actually been around the edges and cut off any old caulk that was there before. Just kind of trimmed it to make it look a little neater. And I started caulking and I ran out of caulk, so I'm going to have to go to something else. I'm going to put a something over this seam right here. I really just I wanted it to look similar to this type of seam cover that's original. So I just cut a piece of this same 1/4 inch plywood to this same width right here, and the length of the trailer, the length of this piece of seam that I have to cover. And I'm gonna have to cut a little piece out of it here because the cover that goes over the vent is gonna have to go up there. And so I taped it up there with these pieces of masking tape, and then just put the vent cover up there and drew a line around it. So I'm getting ready to cut that shape with the jigsaw. Then I will put it back up there and get it in position with tape, and then I'll just put some brad nails in it, and I'll get it all painted. So here's the shape that I've drawn off that I'm going to cut. I'll cut out just above the line, leave myself some space. I've already sanded this and sanded the edges a little bit, rounded them just a little bit with some sandpaper. Okay, so we got that strip nailed in, and I tried out the vent cover and it fits real well. So now I need to finish caulking around the edge and then paint. I got the ceiling caulked around the edges and painted. I did want to show you the end result, so I think it turned out pretty good. I did caulk around these edges. There's a kind of a rubber molding here around the top of the wall, and for the most part the ceiling set down on there pretty well. There were a few little gaps, but a couple of beads of caulking around took care of that. And then I primed the wood ceiling and then put 2 coats of paint on it. Put this vent cover back on, and here's the transition. I kept this transition and just took it out, and then put it back to cover the seam, painted everything. I think it turned out pretty good.